He is everywhere, on playlists, in headlines, across stages that stretch from Toronto to Tokyo. To some, Drake is the blueprint of success, an artist who turned ambition into empire, an entertainer who refuses to slow down. But for every accolade pinned to his name, there exists an equally sharp blade of criticism, a relentless echo across social media, hip-hop circles, and even among casual listeners. Why does everybody hate Drake? To answer that question, we must strip away the image, the carefully constructed persona of fame, the crafted melodies, the stadium lights, because behind the trophies and the streams lies a trail of controversy, his authenticity questioned, his rivalries exposed, his personal life scrutinized and mocked. For every triumph, there has been a storm, and for every chart-topping record, an army of critics ready to tear it apart. The paradox is undeniable. How can one man sit at the very top of music and yet carry the burden of being one of its most ridiculed? What does that say about him? And what does it say about us? Over the next hour, we'll step into a career that is both celebrated and condemned. We'll follow the rise of a child actor turned global icon. We'll uncover the battles with peers who questioned his pen, the accusations that trailed his relationships, and the lawsuits that threatened to overshadow his music. We'll witness how memes, scandals, and betrayals shaped a legacy as complicated as the man himself. Drake is one of the most loved artists alive. He is also one of the most hated. Tonight, we search for the reasons why. To understand why Drake attracts so much criticism, we need to go back to the very beginning, long before the awards, long before the headlines, before the world even knew his name. A young boy growing up in Toronto, raised by a single mother, caught between two worlds. His father, a drummer from Memphis with deep ties to music, in and out of his life. His mother, Jewish Canadian, working to hold everything together. Childhood wasn't glamorous. It was complicated. It was fractured. And yet it was here that Drake, Aubrey Graham, first began to dream of being something bigger. But his first breakthrough wasn't music. It was acting. Cast as Jimmy Brooks on the teen drama Degrassi: The Next Generation, Aubrey became a familiar face in Canadian households. For some, this was a sign of talent. For others, it planted the first seed of doubt. When he finally stepped into rap, many asked, how could a former child actor become the voice of hip-hop? That question would haunt him. Because in hip-hop, authenticity is everything. And from the very start, Drake carried a label he could never fully shake, an outsider. Still, in 2009, his mixtape So Far Gone shifted everything. Tracks like Best I Ever Had exploded online. Suddenly, he wasn't just an actor with dreams of music. He was a new force, backed by Lil Wayne and Young Money, stepping into an industry dominated by hardened street rappers. His sound was different, melodic, vulnerable, emotional. For many, it was refreshing. For others, it was proof that hip-hop was changing in ways they didn't welcome. This was the beginning of the split. On one side, fans who saw Drake as innovative, a new kind of artist blending rap and R&B with mainstream appeal. On the other, critics who saw him as soft, inauthentic, and manufactured. And then came the first cracks in the image. Questions about his lyrics, whispers about ghostwriting, claims that the man at the top wasn't writing all his own words. In an art form where every line is a declaration of self, this was enough to spark outrage. But this was only the start, because as Drake's fame grew, so did the resentment. His every move, his every relationship, his every feud would be dissected by both fans and haters alike. And soon, the questions of authenticity would ignite battles that defined his career. As you listen, I know you would be been gripped by this story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, because every week we uncover the stories behind the headlines, the truths hidden behind the fame, and the mysteries that keep the world talking. By the early 2010s, Drake was no longer just the new kid on the block. He was a global star. The albums Thank Me Later and Take Care cemented him as a hitmaker. But with every success came a louder counterforce: doubt. The first major storm broke in 2015. What began as a rap feud quickly escalated into one of the most defining moments of his career. Meek Mill accused Drake of relying on ghostwriters, a charge that cut straight to the heart of hip-hop credibility. For weeks, the culture debated, could the biggest rapper in the world really not be writing all his own lyrics? Drake responded with music, Charged Up, followed by the explosive back-to-back. Fans celebrated it as a knockout. The track became a cultural phenomenon, even earning a Grammy nomination. But beneath the victory, the accusation lingered. Ghostwriting, a wound that never fully healed. Because in rap, battles aren't just entertainment, they're about respect, and respect is earned by your pen. For some, this moment confirmed their suspicions that Drake was more product than poet. But the Meek Mill feud wasn't the last. Another rivalry would strike far deeper. In 2018, Pusha T released The Story of a Titan. The world was stunned. In one track, Pusha unveiled a secret Drake had managed to keep hidden: his son. With surgical precision, Pusha not only questioned Drake's authenticity, but also exposed his personal life to the public in a way that could never be undone. For many fans, this was the turning point. The carefully polished image cracked. The meme spread like wildfire. And for his critics, it was proof that Drake's empire was built on secrets and silence. Even outside of these battles, resentment grew. Some rappers accused him of borrowing sounds, accents, and flows from other cultures, using them for hits, then moving on. Others claimed his dominance on streaming platforms wasn't organic, but the result of the industry machinery placing him on every playlist, every chart, everywhere at once. The narrative began to shift. Drake wasn't just successful. To some, he was too successful, too polished, too untouchable. And in music, nothing fuels hate like the sense that someone's crown isn't fully earned. But as the controversies mounted, another side of the story unfolded: Drake's personal life, his relationships, his choices, and his image outside the music would provide even more ammunition for those waiting to see him fall. Fame has a way of magnifying everything: every friendship, every romance, every mistake. And for Drake, the personal and the public were never separate. They collided over and over again, feeding both his myth and his criticism. His relationships became constant headlines. With Rihanna, it was a story of on and off affection, a love played out in front of millions. At times celebrated, at times criticized, their connection became part of his music, part of his image. But with every public gesture, every performance together, whispers grew louder. Was this real or just another performance for the spotlight? Then came Serena Williams, Jennifer Lopez, and a list of other high-profile names. Each relationship dissected, each move speculated upon. For fans, it was entertainment. For critics, it was evidence of a carefully curated persona, a man more vested in spectacle than sincerity. But the controversy didn't stop at celebrity romances. Allegations began to surface. Claims of questionable behavior, of connections with women much younger than himself. Rumors that spread like wildfire across social media, amplified by memes, screenshots, and speculation. Drake rarely addressed them directly. His silence only fueled the debate. And then came the revelation that would redefine how fans saw him: his son. Hidden from the public eye, his existence revealed not by Drake, but by Pusha T in the heat of a rap war. The news shook the industry. To some, it was personal. An artist who had built a career on confessional lyrics accused of concealing the most important truth of his life. To others, it was proof that even global icons struggle with what to reveal and what to protect. The backlash was swift. Social media mocked him, memes spread faster than his own music. Critics accused him of hypocrisy. The image of control, the carefully maintained aura of transparency through his music, was shattered. Drake tried to reclaim the narrative. He opened up in later interviews, spoke about wanting to shield his son from the chaos of fame. But the damage was already done. For his supporters, it was a moment of vulnerability, a rare glimpse of humanity. For his detractors, it was the final confirmation that Drake wasn't who he wanted the world to believe he was. Every move he made, every word he left unsaid, became ammunition in the hands of those who disliked him. The personal and the professional had merged. And now, the question wasn't just about his music. It was about his very character. And as his private life turned into public spectacle, another front of criticism was emerging. It wasn't just about who he loved or what he hid. It was about power, about influence, about whether Drake had become too dominant for his own good. By the mid-2010s, Drake was more than just an artist. He was a machine. His singles didn't just chart, they dominated. Albums didn't just sell, they defined summers, soundtracked entire years. His voice was inescapable, his presence unavoidable. But with dominance comes suspicion. Critics began to ask questions. Was this meteoric success purely the results of talent, or was it the work of an industry eager to crown its most reliable star? The whispers of Drake being an industry plant grew louder. A chosen figure, backed by powerful networks, placed on playlists, pushed to the front of streaming platforms. To some, it felt like Drake wasn't just competing in the music world. He was being handed the crown before the battle even began. And then there were the accusations of culture borrowing. Caribbean patois in one song, a UK drill accent in another, Nigerian Afrobeat stylings in the next. For supporters, it was proof of versatility, of global awareness, of an artist willing to embrace the sounds of the world. For critics, it was exploitation. Drake, they said, wasn't honoring these cultures. He was consuming them, taking what worked, discarding what didn't, and always placing himself at the center. Other artists took notice. Some called him out directly. Others mocked him in lyrics and interviews. Each time, the criticism followed a familiar pattern. Drake was too polished, too strategic, too willing to adapt in ways that seemed more calculated than authentic. And behind it all, the numbers kept climbing. Streams in the billions, records broken, awards stacked one after another. His dominance became so absolute that some began to wonder, was Drake's presence choking the industry itself? Smaller artists complained of being overshadowed. Entire release schedules shifted to avoid colliding with his drops. To fans, it was proof of his power. To detractors, it was suffocating. Because in music, people love an underdog. But when you're at the top for too long, the crown begins to look heavy. Envy turns to disdain. Success turns to suspicion. And every step you take becomes a reminder to some that you've been at the top for far too long. But even as these industry criticisms piled up, another storm gathered on the horizon. This time, it wasn't about music, and it wasn't about culture. It was about the law. Courtrooms, lawsuits, and headlines that once again pushed Drake into the spotlight. This time, not as an artist, but as a defendant. Hate doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It grows layer by layer, fed by envy, disappointment, and the weights of expectations. And in Drake's case, the psychology behind that hate is as fascinating as the music itself. For some, the resentment is simple. He is too successful. His dominance on the charts makes him inescapable. When one voice becomes the soundtrack of a decade, fatigue sets in. People begin to resist, not because the music has changed, but because hearing it everywhere turns admiration into exhaustion. For others, the hate comes from betrayal. Drake built his image on emotional honesty, songs that felt like confessions, lyrics that seemed to peel back the curtain. Fans believed they knew him. But when controversies revealed secrets, ghostwriting, hidden relationships, a son kept from the public, that sense of intimacy fractured. The artist they trusted was suddenly a stranger. And then there is hip-hop itself, a culture rooted in authenticity, where the story you tell must align with the life you've lived. Drake, the actor turned rapper from Toronto, never quite fit the mold. To purists, his success feels like an invasion, a reshaping of the genre into something softer, more commercial, less connected to its roots. But there's also something universal here. Human beings have a strange relationship with success. We celebrate it, but we also resent it. We want heroes, but we also want to see those heroes stumble. Drake represents that paradox. The higher he climbed, the more people wanted to pull him down. And yet, through all of this, through the scandals, the memes, the criticisms, Drake remains bigger than ever, more visible than ever. Loved by millions, hated by millions, a figure who embodies the strange truth of fame, that sometimes the price of being everywhere is being disliked by everyone who wishes you weren't. Across 2 decades, Drake has built an empire, from television sets in Toronto to the largest stages in the world. His journey is unlike any other in music history. He has broken records, redefined genres, and reshaped the sound of a generation. Yet for every milestone, the shadow of criticism has followed. We have seen how questions of authenticity cast doubt on his artistry, how rivalries expose secrets that were never meant for public view, how his personal life, once private, became ammunition in a culture eager for spectacle, how his dominance in the industry raised suspicions of power unchecked, and how legal battles and controversies shifted the way the world perceived him. The result is a paradox. A man celebrated as one of the greatest entertainers of his time, and yet also ridiculed, doubted, and even despised. Perhaps the hate isn't just about him. It's about what he represents. The cost of success, the fragility of image, the tension between art and authenticity. So why does everybody hate Drake? Is it because he has stayed at the top for too long? Because he broke the unspoken rules of a culture that demands struggle before success? Or is it because in him we see a reflection of our own complicated feelings about fame, our admiration, our envy, and our need to question those who seem untouchable? One thing is certain, Drake is not going away. He will continue to release music, to fill arenas, to dominate the charts. And the debate around him will only grow louder. Loved by millions, hated by millions. A figure who embodies the strange truth of fame, that sometimes the price of being everywhere is being disliked by everyone who wishes you weren't. In the end, the story of Drake isn't just about one artist. It's about us and the way we build, celebrate, and tear down our idols. And so the question remains, why does everybody hate Drake? Is it jealousy? Is it authenticity? Or is it simply the cost of being everywhere, all the time? The answer may never be simple, but one thing is clear. Drake's story is far from over. As long as the music keeps playing, as long as the charts bend to his will, as long as his name echoes through arenas across the world, he will remain both idolized and criticized. Perhaps that is the true measure of his impact, that he cannot be ignored. But Drake's controversies are only one part of hip-hop's bigger picture. Because in this industry, no star escapes scrutiny forever. And in our next story, we uncover another artist whose rise and fall shocked the culture. A case that raises even darker questions about fame, loyalty, and truth. And so the question remains, why does everybody hate Drake? Is it jealousy? Is it authenticity? Or is it simply the cost of being everywhere all the time? The answer may never be simple, but one thing is clear. Drake's story is far from over. As long as the music keeps playing, as long as the charts bend to his will, as long as his name fills arenas across the world, he will remain both idolized and criticized. Perhaps that is the true measure of his impact, that he cannot be ignored. If you've been gripped by the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, because every week we uncover the stories behind the headlines, the truths hidden behind the fame, and the mysteries that keep the world talking. And in our next episode, we turn to another story, one that reveals how quickly admiration can turn into betrayal, and how an entire career can collapse in a single moment. You won't want to miss it.